Welcome to the Rugged Revival podcast. As you all know by now, it's the home of the UK's country music community. We know how much TJ loves that slogan. So we're joined by my co-host TJ the DJ with his face like a confused moose. But more importantly, we have the pleasure of introducing the very fabulous, very talented Jonathan Peyton, an exceptional singer, songwriter and personal favourite of ours at the Rugged Revival. We'll be diving into Jonathan's musical journey, creative partnership with his wife Abigail Peyton, and the stories behind the music. So, seeing this is our first Valentine's podcast, let's do a bit of Valentine's. There you go. First Valentine's podcast. We might even ask you about some of your love stories and how you both met. So, Jonathan, can I hand it over for you to introduce yourself to everybody that's listening to the Rugged Revival?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Peyton. I live in Woodstock, Georgia. You mentioned my wife. We perform together. We've been married 12 years, coming up on that. We have kids. They're born and raised here in Georgia. Singer, songwriter, folk artist. Been playing music for a long time, and kind of started taking it serious not too long ago, maybe 5 or 8 years ago. And yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Jonathan, thank you very much and welcome to the Rugged Revival. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us. So, we're going to march on with the questions, I think. And the first one is the one that I always love to ask is where did little Jonathan come from, your childhood journey? What was baby Jonathan like? Talk us through it. Talk us about your upbringing.
So I'm originally from Northern Ohio. I have a like 5, 6, 7 siblings, something like that. I don't know. We have a big family. We moved really young to Georgia, and my parents divorced when I was like 5 years old, and home life was pretty wild. And so I spent a lot of my childhood just trying to figure things out. So little John wasn't doing a whole lot. And when I'd say in the high school, like 15, 16 years old, I really started taking to music. Really loved just hearing music. I felt like it was an escape for me, dealing with, I think, the previous 15 years of my life, if that makes sense. And that's what really started me on this music journey, was feeling like I wasn't alone because I was listening to these amazing songs and these amazing songwriters. And so Little Jonathan wasn't doing a whole lot, not a whole lot of music, but I found it when I was a teenager.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know it's very very personal, but we ask every artist where they come from, and I know that sometimes it's quite hard to share in that. So thank you very much for doing it for us. So, um, if you could describe your music in one sentence, what would it be?
I would say on music that deals with things that we so often don't want to talk about.
Absolutely
That would be my one sentence.
brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, on another note, I know I mentioned about Valentine's a minute ago, so I'm going to ask you a Valentine's question.
All
How
right.
and when did you and Abigail meet?
So we met. A little brother was friends with her family, like her and her entire family. We probably met maybe 15 years ago. And I got to know some of her family through my brother. Her family's extremely musical. And I was recording an EP like 14 years ago, maybe. That EP doesn't exist anymore. And I asked her to sing on it with me. So she was singing some background vocals, and we started crushing on one another. And so she was singing with me, um, doing some background vocals just as a friend. And we got to know each other pretty well, and one thing led to another, and we're, almost 12 years married and 3 kids.
Brilliant. So if you could choose a memorable date, as in what you did on one of the dates, what would it be?
Mm.
I'm testing you now.
I,
I'm testing your relationship knowledge.
it was planned to look like it wasn't planned. It was the day that I proposed to her. She thought we were going on a date to the park, and I think she had suspicion that I might be proposing to her sometime soon. So I made her think that we were going to do something for my birthday, and I proposed to her at the park down here. And I don't know, that one sticks in my mind because I was like, I got her.
What a
That's brilliant.
smoothie.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's brilliant. That's awesome. Um, and moving in with your relationship, has that influenced your music at all? Has it influenced what you do, how you act? I know that obviously you sing together quite a bit. Is there anything that is, vice versa? Has anything changed? Has anything been influenced? Is there specific moments that you've gone through that you think, yeah,
Well, definitely. I mean, we've had a lot of ups and downs, just as anyone has. Over 12 years, it's been great, but we've had those moments that were like you feel like you're just ripped apart. Um, we've dealt with some heavy loss and things like that, and I think this our relationship has definitely being able to make it through some of the things we have. Like it heavily influences the music. Our I know I have a song. We have a couple versions of it. It's called "Count of the Stars." That's just about hardships that we've gone through as a family. Um, and had I not had that relationship we have, like that song probably wouldn't exist because it
yeah.
was it was a hard one to write. And she,
But you were saying about the song that you made together, and you've had some hard times, family hard times, and support each other through that. And that song wouldn't have existed if you hadn't gone through them, and you wouldn't have supported each other through it.
absolutely, yeah, that's the best way to put it.
Brilliant. And thank you again, for sharing the personal experiences with us. So, what's something about Abigail that makes her a great musical partner? Be careful
She
now.
so she's more musical than I am, and because we're so often performing with just us, she is following me, and sometimes it's like, hey, this is like the 37th version of this song. We sing it different every time, but somehow you just can't tell because she's so good at following. She's just, I guess, learned my ways, my unstable ways, because sometimes I'll completely change stuff, don't even realize it. And she's just so in tune that she'll just follow it like it like it's always been the same. And it's so impressive to me because if I was following her and she was changing like that, it would throw me off. So I know uh I've probably made her job a little hard, and she just does it with ease.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Perfect. And then that's a lovely thing to say as well. So you must have brownie points. You've got to have gold stars for that. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And we know there's obviously something very, very special about the husband and wife duos. You've got Chris Stapleton and his wife, George Jones and Tammy Wynette, and Brooks and Dunn. So I know that on the flip side, we've got it can sometimes be a struggle. So is there anything that you find a struggle? Traveling with your wife, singing with your wife, being on stage with your wife.
yeah. I mean, I know I could get stubborn, and because I know she's more musical than me, uh, sometimes we'll butt heads, and really she's just making a suggestion that'll make something better, and I'll be, but I got my way. So you should listen to her. You should listen.
absolutely understand you there.
with my stubbornness.
Now, you're the only one on here that will admit they're stubborn, because I know that TJ and I don't admit to our own partners that we're stubborn. So that's again gold stars for you. So thank you for sharing that.
We can learn from Jonathan, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So the last big question for me is there anything, was there a standout moment when you realized music was going to be your career, that you were like, yep, this is me, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, to be honest with you, we're still trying to figure that out. We've had, yes, there's definitely standout moments, but I've gone through this up and down in the music industry, and it's hard to navigate with working a full-time job and being a husband and a father first. So you know, I've had to turn things down to where, knowing, hey, this would advance my career, but it would make my life miserable. So I'm not going to do it. So I'm still trying to figure out how to do music full time, by not just being gone all the time. But when I realized that, like, I want to do this, I want to provide this way. Um, I'll we got to go to Washington State by Bryan. He invited us out there to go and record on his YouTube channel. And I remember he went back to
Wow.
his edited videos that night, posted the next morning. And
Wow.
next, you know, people were blowing my phone up,
Yeah.
and it was just like, hey, whoa, this is wild. And then,
Yeah, Jonathan. So, I mean, you just mentioned a minute ago Bryan, and you've shared the stage with some incredible artists, including Zach. Charles Wesley Godwin, another favourite of the show. Wyatt Flores, and just incredible names. And the fact that you say you found music quite late on, to be sharing stages with incredible artists like that must be, amazing for you. How did those opportunities come about?
it, with I started opening some shows for Zach after we got connected, after we did his YouTube channel, and that just kind of led to other things, like getting introduced to people in the industry, getting introduced to other artists. And then I also just kind of had this mindset, like, I'm just going to ask for crazy things. Like, I'm reach out to, like, these venues in Atlanta, like the football stadium, and ask to open these arena shows. Like, I know they're going to, I'm just going to ask for something that seems impossible. And so I just kind of had that mindset, like, just do it, but don't be annoying. And it started to pay off, and they saw that we were doing, opening this big show. So they're like, oh, well, maybe I'll respond this time. And it just was this snowball effect. And I started getting to, like, oh, now I don't just know this artist, but I know their agent. Let me reach out to their agent and see if I can get on these shows. And yeah, it was great. I got to know Charles through the Zach connection, and got to know all these other people. We went, you mentioned Wyatt Flores. We went on tour with Wyatt, got to know him. He brought us out. We did like a show with him. Then he brought us out on a tour. Trayton Farley brought us out on a tour. And I don't know, once you start getting in those circles, it's just like everybody knows somebody somehow. Or if they don't, they know somebody that knows them. And I just wasn't afraid to tap on his shoulder and be like, hey, like,
It's great, like you say. It's about building connections, and once you're in certain circles, I suppose it gets easier to get into some of these venues and places, and it's amazing. We were watching, for all of your videos, particularly for the Red Rocks Amphitheatre, which everyone that we speak to on the show, it's a highlight for them. It's somewhere that's on their kind of bucket list to play. So tell us about that particularly, because was that Zach Bryan's All My Homies Hate Ticketmaster gig that he was doing? I remember it at the time, and I watched all of the YouTube videos that you've done, and it just looked absolutely incredible. I mean, what was that like, and how did that particular show come about?
well, That was unreal. I remember I flew out to Washington, Spokane, Washington by myself solo to go open for Zach. And we were in the green room and he's like, "You want to open Red Rocks?" I'm like, "Are you kidding?" He's like, "Why would I kid about something like that? Like, come open." I was like, "Well, yeah, absolutely." And so we went out there. My wife and I went out to Red Rocks, and that night where we recorded that album, that was crazy because I actually didn't get to play. It snowed so hard that our set got canceled, and so did Charles Godwin. And then, but Zach ended up bringing us on stage twice, and then you know I didn't even realize it was going to happen. We got a credit on his live album, like our names were on there, and like, oh wow. So that was a whole nother thing too. That it's just like this is wild. When we're even at Red Rocks, and um, even though we didn't get to play that night, it was still one of the coolest things. We put on a show in the parking lot. We met so many great people. So that was one of those like, man, I feel like someone just knocked me out because I got the news that I'm not playing, but also I'm still here. I'm still with all these amazing people. We're in the mountains and the snow is beautiful. It's like just this picture perfect place. And then he's like, "Hey, I'll bring you back." I'm like, "Oh wow." So the following year, he brought us back as direct support for 2 nights at Red Rocks. So we got, we got our redemption. We got to play, um, and that was about a year and a half ago. That was unreal. I cried on that stage because I don't like, we played in Colorado. We did 2 shows with Zach. We played in Colorado the next night, our own show. We had 100 something people there, and it was one of my favorite shows of all time that we've ever headlined. It was so cool, but it was like, wow, like, so we don't get opportunities to go play in front of 10,000 people at Red Rocks. Like that's unheard of. And that's something that just does never seemed attainable in my mind to get to do something like that. So to get that invite, and it's like, hey, we're just these little songwriters you know, from Georgia that, no one out there knows our name. So like this is just like, how did we get here? What is like, it doesn't make sense, but I'll take it. We were with it. I took my full band out there, and I still get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, you were absolutely incredible, and I love though. I mean, I posted one of them on TikTok recently, and everyone just absolutely loved it. Where you in the parking lot when it was snowing, you and your wife just cracked out the acoustic, and was it
That
a
was awesome.
spontaneous moment that kind of occurred?
Yeah, that was honestly, I was pretty down because we're sitting in our green room, and I'm like, man, I'm so grateful to be here, but I just bummed because we're not playing. It's like, man, this is I don't know how to explain it. Your mind just going everywhere. You're happy, and then you're sad, and then you're like, man, this is a weird experience. So someone's like, hey, there's people in the parking lot would love to see you. So we go up there, and people they knew what was going on, and uh, a stranger handed me a guitar, and we put on a show. And now that guy that handed me that guitar, he was just at our show in Atlanta the other night. He's a good friend, and so we made so many just amazing connections. Like people still talk to us about that parking lot. Um, the people that were there, we got a lot of love online from that, and it was very unplanned. We just Yeah, we went up there, probably played 5 songs, and people were just so kind. I don't know how else to put it. Like we some of those people that were there that day, they'll travel out of state when they know we're coming to do a show not too far from them because we just have that connection from that day, and it's special. Like that, you can't make something like that happen, and it just I'll, I'll always remember it.
Yeah, like you say, something that kind of bummed you out, to turn into something, of such a special moment of that kind. It was almost meant to be in that way, and then to get to go back as well. I mean, that's pretty cool of Zach as well, and to give you that opportunity, man. So No, I love those videos. I just think it's special. But it's interesting as well. So someone handed you a guitar. I just thought it was your guitar that you had with you. So
No, no,
that's how
people were telling.
spontaneous it was.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Fantastic. So yeah, anyone out there, honestly, just go out on YouTube and watch it, and it's on our TikTok, so you won't be disappointed. And like I said, there's a few tracks that you did while you're out there, all recorded. Was it on someone's iPhone or something as well? Because the audio is really good on it. So
Yeah, there was people. There were cameras, iPhones, and uh, some of our friends that were out there with us were taking videos. So yeah, it was. I was probably mostly just phone audio going around.
yeah, it's good though. So obviously we talked about Red Rocks and some of the people that you've been touring with. Have you got any other favourite venues? And we were talking just before we came on about our mutual friend Josh Mitchum, and he's got an incredible venue. And I know you've played there not too long ago with your wife at Ramble at the Randall. So we'll give that a plug as well.
That venue is something special. I don't know, like how where you guys are over there. Like the Kentucky music scene, the state of Kentucky is. There's something about that state when it comes to music. Every time we played in Kentucky, it's just magical. You have the best fans there. I love it. And Josh is a great musician. He's a great music fan, and he's just a good guy. And he has this beautiful barn. And we had never been there. We show up. We were opening for Nicholas Jamerson in the Morning Jays, and who I'm a huge fan of. So I was just happy to be there. And we got there, and I was like, "Oh, this is." I don't know what I expected, but this is better than that. And that, it was just cool. You could tell that there's not a lot going on in that area, and he's put together something that people there really look forward to. So we were a guest. We didn't know anyone there, and people were so respectful and so kind, and bought a ton of our merch. I love that venue. And another venue that comes to mind when you ask is Globe Hall in Denver. We played there after Red Rocks, and then they invited us back the following year to come back and do our own show again. That's a great venue. And then really random, there's a venue in Jasper, Indiana, called the Astra Theater. They they really wanted us to come play. I was trying to talk them out of having me play because I was like, your venue's too big for me. Like, don't worry about it. We went and played, and it was a packed house, and it was phenomenal. Like the venue took a chance on us. They believed in us, and now it's almost like an annual thing that we go back to this theater in Indiana, and they're a big reason why we have this just random following there. But that venue is Astra Theater is just beautiful place, beautiful people, um, very special to me.
You nearly talked yourself out of it, so I'm glad you didn't.
They convinced me to reconsider, and I went up, and it went so well.
Oh, that's perfect. It's interesting. So you play all over, Jonathan, from what you're saying. And I was speaking to some people recently, some other artists, and they were saying, they almost get a bigger following in other towns other than more so than their hometowns. Is that the same for you and your experience?
Um, not so much for me. We have a lot of hometown support. So even though I didn't really start traveling and playing um, until maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I've played here in North Georgia I think I played my first show 18 years ago. So I played around this area forever before I ventured out. So we have a special fan base here in our hometown. And even when we flew out to Colorado, I mean, we had a ton of people get on a plane, go to Colorado just to support us. And it's like, this is cool. But we do have, like I mentioned, Indiana. I thought, who in Indiana listens to my music? And I was wrong. I just had no idea. So the like Indiana, Colorado, it's just real random, but there people are out there listening, and it surprises you, and it's such a great feeling.
That's awesome, man. It inspires you to kind of carry on and make more music when you've got that sort of fan base. It's amazing. So you're still independent, Jonathan? Are you signed up to anyone, or are you still kind of going indie?
I am full independent. I I still do all my own booking and managing. I'm kind of a one man show for everything. And I just load my music through a distributor and put it out.
That's great. It must be hard though. Is it difficult being the kind of social media person and trying to get the music and on top of just actually writing the music, there must be so many hours in a day for you to get that
It,
stuff done.
it's very hard. So, on top of being a husband, raising kids, and still going to work, um, to manage the music is a lot. It's a lot, and we take our breaks. We just played our first show in 3 months. We knew we had to take a break, and we've got a few shows lined up, but I'm ki- I'm I'm more focusing on releasing music this year than doing a ton of shows. I was fortunate to spend a good amount of time in the studio in the past like 6 7 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Who you been working with specifically in the studio? Because weren't you working with a guy on the last album who's part of Jason Isbell's band?
Yeah, so I worked with Sadler Vaden, who's just one of my favorite musicians of all time. That worked out great. We cut an album with him. We just released a single in January that we Sadler and I wrote together. He produced it, and we cut it the same day in his basement. So it was yeah, and so everything that's coming out now, we have a song that we're about to announce that's coming out. That was all with my friend Jason Horde here in Georgia. He lives a couple hours south of me, and I've just been going to his house and making some songs, and we got a good amount finished up, and we have a few collaborations that we've put together that we'll be announcing down the road. And yeah, I'm gonna release a good bit of music, and then just play a handful of shows.
Good. That leads us into some nice questions about the songs that you've released so far, mate. So your first album, I always like to go through kind of Spotify to see when your music was released and kind of listen to the progress from that point. So Waters Below, that's nearly 10 years since you've released that. Is that right? So does
Yeah.
it feel like yesterday that came out?
Do what?
Does it feel like yesterday that came out?
It does. That was so you know we crowdfunded to be able to go and do that. We did the Kickstarter thing for that, and we went in my friend's basement, and when we had a spare Saturday, I'd get the band together and we go make that. So it took us a while to make it, and we finished it, and we're like, hell, let's just put it out. But the fact that it was that long ago is weird to me in my head, and it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But
It never does it? That's awesome. So between 2016 and 2024, I noticed you've released a collection of songs, which I think eventually became the latest album. So Nothing Here's the Same. Is that how that came about? That you were kind of slowly releasing things as a single, and then
we went and worked with Sadler Vaden up in Nashville, and we recorded 3 songs. And I thought, like, you know, this isn't funded by a label or anything. And going to record in Nashville is not cheap. So I guess I'm just gonna have some singles or an EP, and then next thing you know, I was like, hey, let's record a few more singles, and then we're like, hey, what would it look like to finish an album? And we were able to make it happen. So when we recorded the rest of the songs, I just decided that some of those singles that we recorded, I wanted them to be on there as a whole project because they all kind of fit together. And yeah, went up to Nashville, cut maybe I don't know, 6 to 8 more songs and finished up the album.
Fantastic. And what was the reception like when you released that? Because I noticed that you were just blowing up on Instagram. I was seeing your name all over Spotify, and I thought I've got to check you out. And
Yeah, thank
so I found you all the way over in England. So you must have a good fan base where you are. And did you get a lot of comments, a lot of reviews in terms of to give you some feedback and what people were feeling?
Yeah, we got some good reviews. Some out your way as well. We were getting some reviews in the UK. This is the first time that I, when I recorded Waters Below, just recorded it and loaded it up online and told people about it. Like I knew nothing about, hey, like maybe have a little, put some thought into the release. So it was different with this album, even though it was on me. Like I did work with a publicist who helped, and there's a publication called Saving Country Music that I love, and they gave me this beautiful review that I feel like introduced us to um, a lot of people. But it was received really well. It was my first time cutting vinyl. I always wanted my music on a vinyl. And I'm like, this, I have no idea what to expect. Is this gonna flop? And you know, I had way more pre-orders on that than I ever expected, and we broke even on the vinyl right away. I thought it was gonna take me forever to pay what I spent on it. It was awesome. Like people were, and I see all the orders, so I'm like, oh wow, we're sending a vinyl to Japan, one to Alaska, one to Australia, to the UK, like Canada. Like, what is this? So to me, it was we hadn't been received like that before. So I was very happy.
Yeah, it's something special in vinyl. I think there's a lot of nerds like me that like to collect vinyl because it just sounds better for a start. That's what us old people say. It just sounds better. It looks better. The artwork on it is fantastic. And shout out to Colby Helms as well because I've got his hat on tonight. So he was at a gig recently and I met him, and he was carrying a bunch of vinyl too to the gig. So it weighs a ton for a start. So when you're
Yeah.
selling on your merch tables and you're going to these places, and yeah, he was saying actually that he sells a lot of the vinyl rather than the CDs, and I think for that very reason that you can have a nice signature on it, and it's something for people to collect and to kind of cherish. And that must be nice for you, like you say, sending it out to Japan, Alaska, and all of these obscure places, including the UK, that people can kind of put that into their collection. So that must be a great feeling, man. But
Oh, that's a great feeling. Helps us keep going. That
yes,
support.
because it's
It's
not cheap, is it? Like you say, to kind of
yeah.
put stuff onto vinyl, and then, like you say, hoping to break even at some point. So it's great that you achieved that in quick time, man. That's awesome. And just going back to Spotify, so I noticed I keep saying Spotify, any streaming platform will do. Um, Sunrise has just been released with Abigail, and I think that's a fantastic song. I was listening to that today, and so what's the story behind that particular song?
Well, that song, that's the one that I was mentioning I wrote with Sadler Vaden. So we got together and he kind of had this melody in his head, and we started just throwing out ideas, and um that song is, I don't know, you feel like when you're going through something and you're just longing for rest. Um and also wanting to be that rest for someone you love, when they're going through it. And it's the simple line, like, let me take your heavy heart to the sunrise. It's kind of like that, basically, like, I'm here for you. And that's what we were going for in that song. And we that was the first time I had actually, like, had done like a real co-write. Every other song that I have out, I wrote 100%. So that was a fun, for me, almost like an experiment, because like, I don't know how this is gonna go, and it was a lot of fun to do that with Sadler and be able to create that. But yeah, that song, I love it. I'm really happy with how it came out and the message behind it. Because I think it's easy to sing about, like, songwriter writes a bunch of sad songs. I love sad music, but like thinking about someone else's experience, what they're going through. I'm like, hey, I want to be there in your dark times. Like I'm here for you. I love you, and that I don't know. I think of the people that have been there for me, and so we're trying to write it from a different perspective, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does. Yeah. What I find interesting about your songs, Jonathan, it makes me laugh sometimes. It's like a lot of it's kind of upbeat melodies and driving melodies, and it's more upbeat. But then when you listen to the lyrics, it's quite sad. So
Yeah,
like I don't know how to feel about this song. I'm enjoying it,
yeah.
but the lyrics are so sad, and yeah, you've got a real knack for doing that. So it's a talent, mate. There you go.
It,
And then there was one interesting song that I saw you put on your Instagram not too long ago. I think it was back end of last year. And you kind of put a small message to it. And people have probably asked you this before, but No Amazing Grace. And you said it reflects on your past experience as part of a religious cult when you were younger. So I didn't just thought I'd pose a question to see if you're willing to kind of reveal anything around that, because I just thought it was quite an interesting thing to put out. And is it something you're able to talk about?
oh yeah, I don't mind at all. I actually one of my favorite parts of our shows is sharing the story about this. So give you a little insight to how that song was written, and then give you like the backstory. So I was watching a show on Netflix called Ancient Aliens, and they were talking about how they believe that these cult leaders, these famous cult leaders, were aliens. And there's just like this is a very entertaining show. And I just thought, you know, I did when I was younger, I was in a cult. We I didn't know it then, but I was when I was 19, I met these people that were called themselves missionaries, and they lived in a bus, and I graduated high school and joined them, and we traveled all across North America. And so I started thinking about that as I was watching Ancient Aliens, and I was laughing, kind of just to myself. And then I wrote a really sad song. Kind of funny how that came about. But yeah, I spent over a year um, traveling, doing, we weren't like drinking Kool-Aid and doing, those, the crazy.
I was going to be careful with my questions because I didn't have any idea what you were going to come out with. So
Yeah. So it wasn't that, but it was definitely a very controlling religious cult. And I just said I was a missionary. I was 19 years old. I was out of high school, and I thought, I wanted nothing more at that point than to just leave home. And so I went and spent a lot of time out west in like Wyoming and Colorado, and then a lot of time in British Columbia up in Canada. And yeah, I finally kind of took a step back one day and thought, this isn't good. And normally when I had those thoughts, and this is kind of the narcissistic leadership of a cult, if you start having doubts or anything like that, then you're the problem and no one else is. And so I got trapped in that. And one day I just like, hey, I'm going home. And I went home, and I had found out years later that the leader there had relapsed on drugs and just kept doing all these destructive things. And I touch on a little bit of that in the song, but pretty subtle. And I was just thinking about all the memories, like in there. I have some good ones from there, but there are a lot of there was a lot of baggage that I carried with me into my 20s. I'm 37 now, but I a lot to work through. And as I was working through those things, like music was one of the things that I latched onto, and so Ancient Aliens brought me to finally write about my experience. It's such a weird story, but I love it.
I love that link. I do watch that as well. We have that show on our Fire Sticks here, and it's hilarious. Got like he's a meme, isn't he? That guy now, isn't he? I know exactly what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
well, so it's incredible. So from Ancient Aliens and not drinking the Kool-Aid, come out with this fantastic song, No Amazing Grace, which is one of my favorites. So yeah, you've penned something incredible from a obscure past, shall we say? Thank you for sharing that, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Ronnie, I've been talking for ages here. I feel like I've forgotten all about you. Are you still here?
Yeah, I've just plugged back in actually. No, I was so. Do you know? You said in the last podcast actually that you sort of you just get interested, you listen. It's like two people having a conversation on a couch, and we're talking about all this personal stuff. And Jonathan, it's so interesting to hear your past. And I know you mentioned a couple of times around, the sad songs, but um, for me, listening to someone's again like the last few artists that we've spoken to, we've interviewed, listening to them songs, I can relate to a lot of that through childhood, through growing up, through different things that I've been involved in, and so can everybody else. And that's it might be sad to one person, but actually it might be quite. It's like having that emotional connection with another, and be quite insightful and quite a happy time remembering certain things. And I mean, I was going to go on to when you were talking about Red Rocks. There was one song on there which I've been obsessed with for years. But you done a rendition of Country Roads, and let me tell you, that is the best. That's the best version that I've heard ever. To be honest, so I was billowing that out. But then some of the other songs, like there's one that that I sort of listened to the other day, which was Taking Shelter. Again, was something. Yeah, it was amazing, and it's having that emotional connection and listen to it. And for what you've been through, we've said it so many times around different artists about mental health and being able to reach out and shout out about it. I will keep banging that drum every podcast that we listen to, and you've knocked the nail on the head. You've absolutely sold that point. There's no need for me to talk about it anymore because you said,
Well,
you know,
yeah, I think, and we say sad songs. For me, like, yeah, a lot of them are sad, but for me, it's more about honesty. So I want
yeah,
to write authentic because I know that in my especially when I was younger and I'm just really confused, and I spent time being, if I'm honest, just being angry. I was angry when I was younger, just wondering why this, why that, and music pulled me out of so many holes. Just being able to listen to it and being able to relate to songs. I think that my goal in songwriting and even sharing and going and doing shows and sharing my stories and even coming on here is like, hey, if I can put something out, create something that makes somebody feel less alone because they know that maybe they're not the only one going through what they're going through. I know that I could take my bad experiences that I've learned from and share those, and maybe they're a voice for someone else that said, hey, I went through that thing, but I've never actually talked about it. Now I want to talk about it because I heard this song, because I've been in that place. And I I want to be able to do that for other people because we're all human. I want people to be able to relate, and it's been so healing for me. And if I could provide that for somebody, um, I'm humbled by that. That's incredible. It's not even a pat on the back. It's just like I'm grateful, and I can't believe I got to be a part of something like that. And yeah, I had they're artists I listen to, and I'm just like, man, I don't even know exactly what this song is about, but I feel it, and it's helped me through a day. It's got me out of a funk. It's pulled me out of a dark place. I love that about songwriting.
Jonathan, thank you. What a great message, and thanks for sharing that again with us. I keep saying it because it is personal points, it's personal things that you're bringing up. So it is much appreciated. So just on, you've already said one goal. I've asked this a few times. What's everybody's top three goals? You've already given us one. Um, what's your other two goals? Could be any time, 3 to 5 years. Could be for the rest of your life, whichever. Um, another two top goals.
Yeah, so that I mean, being able to do music full time, like as my only job, that would be a goal. I would like another goal would be able to learn how to produce my own music. I'm not I'm not good at that. Some of the stuff that I've put out, I have done and I've recorded at my house and put it out. But like I would love to be able to have a studio at my home and be able to produce a full record with a band. And I respect anyone that can do that. I haven't put in the hours to learn how to do that. So that's a goal to be able to learn how to do that. And I mentioned getting into co-writing. I always thought for some reason I wouldn't like it. I love it. So I would like to write with more artists. I would like to collaborate and release music with other people.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I know that, listening to your songs, listening to you talking now, you're so dedicated, you're so passionate to what you do. So it will happen. That's that's what happened, and them goals you'll be sailing through on the next set of goals, all the way through. So yeah. So TJ mentioned a while back around when he was consistently talking. Um, you mentioned a while back that your album was 10 years ago. I want to ask you if you could go back 10 years, what bit of advice would you give yourself 10 years ago, if any?
Well, this could be a whole nother podcast on why I'm saying this, but keep your circle small because this industry will eat you alive. Be very careful, and some opportunities are going to come your way, and always put your family first. Make sure you do that.
Brilliant.
I think that
So
I would tell myself back then. If I could go back now and be like, hey, come here. We're going to talk. You know?
yeah, listen in. Thank you. So just talking about musical circles, who's in your musical circle at the moment?
There's some other artists out there that it's nice. Like I become friends with some of these guys, not just like, hey, open for this guy, but like if you're familiar with Drayton Farley, he's a good friend of mine. Um, I could call him and be like, dude, what do you think about this? I'm struggling with it. He's one of those people. It's really nice. Um, and I've gotten to know a lot of, just because I'm still booking my own shows, I've gotten to know a lot of agents and I've gotten to know a lot of managers. And so, like, if I have questions, a lot of these artists that we know, like, their teams are so fine. I could call them up and be like, hey, how do I do this? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's nice that we've gotten a lot of those people in our circles. We're about to open up a run of shows for Nicholas Jamerson. We've He's such a great guy. Being able to have a few conversations with him while opening his shows. Excited to get out and do those. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We recently signed a like a like a publishing deal for music, and so that's kind of helped expand around Nashville as well. We've got to know some of the studios up there, some engineers and some producers and things like that. So I mean, I could name off a number of people, but there's just kind of like people kind of
Mm.
every camp that I could call on, or they could call me if they needed to. Um, it's a small world. It's really small, especially we're maybe 3.5 hours from Nashville. A lot happens there. I don't go up there a ton, but when I go up there, it's just everybody knows everyone.
Yeah. And if you were, I know I asked for, what would you give yourself advice about 10 years ago? What about any sort of emerging talent, any emerging artists? What advice would you give them? You've already said keep your circle small, but is there any other advice that you would give them if they wanted to step into your shoes 10 years ago?
Yeah, and I get asked that question. It's a local musician will be like, "How'd you do this? Or what do I do?" And it's like, hey, like I know you've been watching on social media and like the fun things that we've done, but like I've been playing music for half of my life, and I played shows for years before people started showing up. Like, one, just keep going, get out and play. Like, get out and play. Don't be afraid to ask. for some opening gig that seems like you'll never get, just ask for it. Be persistent. Don't be persistent, but not annoying. That's one of the things I always that guy. Just be persistent though,
I need to
and
learn
don't
that.
be afraid to ask
Yeah.
writing music and putting it out. Just and don't compromise your message because someone manager told you should. Um, do what's true to you. Like don't change your style. Just keep writing. Be consistent. Um, I don't I don't feel like I have a ton of advice to offer, but maybe that's what I would say is like you just gotta just keep going.
Yeah. Fantastic advice.
Some, like overnight, and other people, it's like, hey, 20 years into this thing, like so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice. Thank you. So be persistent and not annoying, TJ, by the way. FYI.
It works. Jonathan's on the show, isn't he? So, yeah.
Yeah. So talking about emerging talent, and the advice you've just given them, is there any emerging musicians or bands that you've been following, and would you recommend any of the listeners
So
to watch out for?
one of my favorites, and he is a friend of mine. He is out of North Georgia. A guy named Hunter Blaylock. He just released a record. Just released his first vinyl. He goes often by Hunter Blaylock and the Sad Machine, and I think he is a phenomenal songwriter, um, great performer, and he's just an amazing human being. We've gotten to know each other. I've been able to put him on a few shows with us, and I wish more than anything that the world knew about Hunter. So, yeah, look up.
Fantastic.
You'll love his
Well,
music.
we need to if you need to do us a favor and get him on here then.
I'll do it.
We need to get him on here. Let's get
I'll
him
do
out.
it.
Let's push his name out.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. And just the last, you'll be happy to know, it's the last question for me before I hand over to
Hey,
TJ.
I'm-
If you weren't a musician, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
mm, I don't know. I really don't. My background is, and it's what I do for work now when I'm not doing music, is I paint cars. But I think if I have no plans of just not being a musician anymore. But if I weren't, I'd probably go find another career. I don't know what that would be. If I'm being honest, I'd have to figure that out.
Wildest dreams. What would be your wildest dream career?
Oh, oh man. You know, this is so random, but I did during COVID. I stopped painting cars for a little bit and I worked in the coffee industry for a coffee importer. I have a passion for coffee, not just like, oh, I like to drink some coffee, but like I was going to Central America and helping with like on the importing side and sales and all that. I could see myself getting into that because there's something about the community in that industry. It's kind of like the music industry. Like you find a good community to making a difference. I definitely miss aspects of that. I could see myself
Wow.
going back to that. Yeah, there were a lot of fulfilling things in that job because hey, like I'm selling all this coffee from Honduras, but I'm also visiting the farmers whose lives are being changed because we're selling this coffee. It was really cool.
Wow. That is incredible. And what a wonderful thing to say as well. You're taking it right back to the roots of it, helping them and yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super interesting, man. I've got a friend who does that. He's got a coffee business locally to where I live in England. And they do exactly that. They go out to places like, I think, Kenya and obviously the places that they grow the beans. They go out and see the guys out there
Yeah.
on the farms. They see how the way they change lives. And it's, you've got to be really into your coffee for doing stuff like that. I enjoy it. It's nice coffee. So.
That music is coffee.
Yeah, Absolutely. So shout out to Short and Curly's for that in Lichfield. Anyway, so let's.
I thought you said something else then. Sorry. Okay.
I know
Yeah.
they could have chosen a better than that,
Yeah.
but I'll cut that bit out.
Fair play.
Anyway, so in terms of just I mean, we're not going to keep you too long, Jonathan, because I know you're really busy with the kids and all that, mate. But we've got a few last questions. I'm just intrigued about this year. You mentioned you've got some projects, some collaborations. Is there anything that you can kind of tell us on that front? Is it all kind of hush hush until you can formally confirm things?
I don't mind telling you about one of them. So we did a thing that released, I don't, maybe November, called our vinyl session.
Mm.
And one of the songs on there, it's called "I Want for You." We recorded like a live version of it. That song I co-wrote with Bryan, who is in a band called the Lone Bellow, and I'm a big fan of the Lone Bellow. And so we cut a studio version of that song, and he sang on the track. So that's one of them. The other one is we're not talking about that one. Yeah, the other one will be a surprise for everyone. So
I was trying to squeeze it out of you there, but no, I appreciate you sharing that, mate. And yeah, I was listening to the our vinyl session today, and there's been some fantastic kind of people who've done our vinyl previously, and it seems to be kind of the benchmark for those type of recordings.
that was such an experience, and they were so nice to us. Everything about doing that, and that's one of those things about I talk about being persistent. Now, I didn't have a team that set that up. I had reached out to our vinyl over the course of like a very long time, and they were like, "Hey, are you going to be in Nashville Friday?" Randomly, after probably a year of emailing, I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there." So, I was there and we recorded it. It was great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Like you say, persistency pays off, and when you get an opportunity like that, you've just got to drop everything and go. So that's awesome. So we ask every guest that comes on because we're just desperate to kind of pick the UK scene up and have as many people over as possible because we don't get treated enough, Jonathan, over here to good artists, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Have you got any plans to come over to the UK in the future? Is that something that's on your kind of plans to do, or is it still kind of trying to forge a career in the States still?
I don't have any plans. I would say that would be a goal. It's one of those things, like in my mind, again, like, and I get that imposter syndrome. Like, well, if I went to the UK, could I sell 2 tickets? Like, I have no idea. Never been over there, but that'd be like a dream to be able to come over there and play a show. There's nothing in the works. But that could change. And if there was an opportunity, I'd love to get on it. But I have plenty of friends that have come over there and just talk about what an experience it is to go out, you know, over that way and play music. Like, and kind of how you say you don't get treated enough. I hear that kind of makes the shows more special. Like you feel really appreciated. I know a lot of people say, "Hey, I went and played over in the UK," and the crowd just loved it. They were just happy I was there, and I was like, "That's awesome."
Absolutely, yeah. And I talked about Colby earlier. I met up with him last week while he was doing his UK tour, and I think he's on the last leg now. He's in Edinburgh before he goes back. So he's come over, and at the end of the month we've got several Appalachian artists coming over to play something similar across the UK. So we've got Hunter Flynn, Daniel Kane, and Lance Rogers over. So we're seeing more often, artists are coming over, and when I'm talking to these guys, they're saying it's such an incredible reception they're getting. I was at the gig for Colby, and speaking to a lot of his fans, from the UK all over, and I think it's such a nice thing to actually. It's not just 2 tickets you'll be selling; it's a lot. And over the course of the kind of gigs that you're playing, you're just finding fans that you probably never realised were around, and
But
it is such a nice feeling. And yeah, those gigs would turn out fantastically. So anyway, you're more than welcome. If you ever want to come over, speak to me and Ronnie, and we'll try and make something happen, mate. But just reach out to us. Okay, so in terms of how we can support you, Jonathan, so beyond kind of streaming music and things like that, because a lot of people are telling me that Spotify doesn't do a right lot for you. It's great for exposure, but in terms of paying bills and kind of supporting you make more music and things like that, what can we do? What can a fan base do to help you?
Honestly, I think word of mouth. If a friend comes to me and is like, "Hey, check this out," like I'm gonna listen to that instead of just seeing like an ad or a post about it. But like when someone's like, "Hey, I've been digging this artist," just like I told you about Hunter Blaylock, like that, just kind of passing along. When people see like, "Oh, my friend's really into this person," and they ask me to check them out, like that's huge. Um, and another way would be if I ever come to the UK, come on out to a show.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we'll be shouting it from the rooftops as well, mate, on our socials and anywhere people might listen to us or want to listen to us. But that's fantastic. So where can we find you? Where's best to find you, Jonathan? Obviously, you're on Instagram and you've got a YouTube page. Is there anywhere else that we can kind of find you and watch what you're doing?
Um, I still post on Facebook some, but I think Instagram is probably the number one spot for me. I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, but I do some on TikTok, but I would say Instagram's the number one place.
Perfect. That's fantastic. And is there anything while we're here that you want to plug? Anything that you kind of want to get across to the listeners?
I'd say stay tuned because we're releasing a lot of music, and actually by the time this comes out, I will have already announced our next release.
It's fantastic. Well, we would be watching you very closely in terms of what you're doing. I say we're massive fans, and we super appreciate you coming on the show, mate. It's
I
been
have one more question.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go.
What are you doing for Valentine's?
So take it easy. Take it easy on me. My wife and I have never really cared for Valentine's Day. It's not I'm not against it, but we've never really just like, doesn't really mean anything. But then the older I get, I'm starting to think like, hey, you know what? That's just an excuse to go on a date, and which doesn't happen a lot. We've got a lot going on, multiple jobs and three kids and extracurriculars, and so it's like, you know what? Maybe I should do something because we haven't done something for Valentine's Day in a long time. So I have no plans as of
Well, there you go. There's what you've got to do now. You've got to go and sort some plans out. I haven't got any. I'm not going to do anything, and I don't think TJ is going to be doing anything either.
Well,
Are you?
no. Well, I'm going to use Jonathan's mindset there. In fact, it's a
Yeah.
good opportunity to have someone babysit for the evening
Yes.
and us go out and have a few drinks and a meal and yeah, chill out. Like I say, have a day because you don't do it often enough. You're working multiple jobs. You're doing podcasts and you're doing this, that, and the other. And, you just don't often get time to yourselves. So yeah, there you go. That sounds super romantic anyway, doesn't it? I think. If you're listening, ladies,
Let's just end this.
this is the best. This is the best it gets. But look, I think we'll sign off now, Jonathan. It's been a real pleasure, dude.
Absolute pleasure.
I've enjoyed this one, albeit with noise from the children in the background. But it's all good, It's
No,
just
that's
one of those
life. I'm used to
family
that.
types of shows,
Yeah.
man. Exactly.
True.
So yeah, so we'll finish off. We normally do a bit of a toast towards the end because it's oh, where has he got that from? I'm waiting for Jonathan to put his. There you go. So I have my water, Jonathan. I don't know what you got on your cup, mate, but
This is water.
water, and Dan has his red rose. How romantic! But we'll raise a toast anyway to the grit, the grind, and to the revival. And thank you so much for everyone for listening.